The Africa's tech sector was projected to be worth over 180 billion by the year 2025. But the big question still remain, what are the factors? What are the various influencers of such a huge projection? So for today's session, we're going to be looking at the current state of growth in Africa's technology sector, and we'll be looking at it from the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal sides of things. So, welcome to Innovating with Nizo. Governments across Africa are beginning to implement digital economic policies. And these policies are either directed towards startups or the general digital transformation of a country. So, some of the most notable, we have Nigeria. Nigeria in August 2024 released a national artificial intelligence strategy document. So this document was released as a pathway for the implementation of AI for the country entirely. Another notable political support for the technology ecosystem also came from Kenya. Kenya in 2025 released a national policy on virtual assets. Also, we have South Africa in April of 2024 released an AI framework to regulate ethics and innovation. So these are some of the efforts made, by individual countries. We also have Pan-African efforts, efforts that cuts across multiple African countries. So some notable ones are the African Continental Free Trade Area. So this was adopted in February 2024, and this establishes rules for digital trade across 54 African countries. So this is awesome. So I want to just let me explain. So the impacts or the opportunities for like startups. So imagine you're a startup and you're building an e-commerce solution and you're based in Kenya. You know, before you say you're building maybe just for Kenyans, but because of this type of stride, this type of documents that already cuts across 54 countries, you can already be building from Kenya and you're going to be servicing the whole of Africa because you're no longer bound by policies. Policies and regulations are not holding you back from being able to sell because you already have rules and regulation that governs this. So this is really awesome. And then we also have the African Union Digital Transformation Strategy. So this was a foundational strategy document to guide member states on digital infrastructure, skills, and governments. So currently, Africa has one of the fastest growing fintech sectors, and the fintech sector is something that we Africans are really proud of. And the current valuation of the fintech sector, it is already $1 trillion ecosystem, and this ecosystem is attracting investment from all over the world. So we're very proud of the fintech ecosystem. But now to a more biased, a more biased subsector. So let's look into the hardware sector. So the hardware sector currently already contributes a whopping 10 to 12% of the continent's GDP. And this is really interesting for those of us that were enthusiasts for that sector. And a lot of the growth in this sector is being attributed to the current demand for EVs. So some of the evidence growth we have seen is because of the demand for EVs. So previously we used to have buyers for this sector. You hear buyers like the knowledge gap, the tooling and power. But I'm here to give you the good news that a lot of this is already being addressed. The knowledge gap is closing, and we're seeing tools, and all of these are being fixed. So, and there are a lot of opportunities that exist in this sector. We have opportunities for learning and development. So, yeah, kudos to the hardware sector. So Africa is also a youth powerhouse with a maiden age of 19 and a doubling workforce by 2050 that will be equipped to bring about innovation and digital growth across sectors and the entire continent. We also have the gender unlock. So this is something very beautiful. We have more women vying for over 30% of the tech roles that are out there. Yeah. And for my over 3, 4 years of being an innovator, I have seen a lot of women led startups, thrive in the industry. So yeah, kudos to the African taxis out there. Then we also have the trust building boom. So there's been a lot of boom, and the trust for local technology. Initially, or the earlier, inception of startups, we did not really trust local technology. So there was a lot of adoption for foreign solution. But now we have local technology that are, leading different sectors. The fintech sector, we'll always be proud of the fintech sector. So they are a good example. We have local solutions, M-Pesa, Paystack, Flutterwave, all trailblazing the sector. So we also have more people online. Yeah, so statistics say that we've been able, in the past 10 years, we've had over 70% more addition to the digital economy markets. This is due to more people being online, and we have affordable, internet connections. Rural areas, are beginning to, have access to all the urban area has when it comes to digital tools. So this has brought about a 70% increase in the digital economy market. And finally, we have the unified market magic. So I already spoke about this earlier. The continental Pan-African strides that are happening politically, like with the African Continental Free Trade Zone. The technology side, one of the major influencers is the increasing demand for the use of AI and machine learning for local contexts. So, two major examples are one, the use of AI and machine learning for local LLM. So, we've seen a rise in the use of machine learning. You've seen models that are trained on local languages as the base training data. So there's an increase for that. And these tools or models that come out of this are being adopted into local solutions. So that's one. Okay, so the second is the increasing adoption of AI into various fields such as finance, healthcare, agriculture, retail. So I even have a first-hand experience of working with a health tech startup that uses computer vision to analyze radio. That's the results of radiology. So and they're able to detect a lot of diseases. So you can check them out. They're called Epoch Zero. Okay, another a major influencer under technology is the IoT and hardware innovation. So um, these boards like the Raspberry Pi, the Arduino, the Jetson Nano were not readily, just something you could go buy, let's say some 10, 20 years ago, 10 years ago self, yeah. They were not something you could just buy off the shelf, but currently you can buy a Raspberry Pi, you can buy any of all these boards just from, a local vendor, and you get programming, and then this has increased its adoption into spares like agriculture, logistics, for fleet management, so many things. So yeah, and then this has also given birth to the rise of hardware startups. So we currently have a lot of hardware startups that are building their solution on top of, maybe a single board computer or a sensor of some sort. And these hardware startups are beginning to gain traction already. So for environmental factors affecting the current state of technology, we have the renewable energy technology. So this has given birth to a lot of solutions around renewable energy. We've seen, I think MTN way back, did the pay as you go energy platform. We've seen a lot of innovation spring around this particular ecosystem. And then there are also opportunities for integration of AI, for optimization of energy consumption for household and so many more. So number two on this list, we have climate smart agriculture. So we've seen a lot of deployment of AI tools, robotics, just to aid to make farming more smarter. We've seen deployment of sensors for the soil to check different parameters that are very important for crop yield. We've also seen satellite technology being deployed for agriculture. We've seen weather prediction tools, so many tools coming up just to make agriculture more smarter. So, okay, the third on my list is the e-waste recycling and circular economy. So, this is a very big one because we've seen the rise in the refurbishing of second-hand devices. I know an entire startup that is doing very fine that builds solar lantern off old devices using the batteries, so many things from old devices, even down to the wires, the nuts, and they're able to build solar lanterns. It's called Quad Loop, so you can also check them out. And then we've also seen the integration of blockchain and IoT for e-waste tracking and compliance. So this is a very interesting sector that is emerging. So finally, we have natural resource traceability. So just talking about blockchain, we've seen a lot of solution that ensures that ethically that the natural resources are ethically sourced. So traceability down from sourcing even to the production. So we've seen a lot of tools, and currently, while I'm making this video, the Hedera Foundation hackathon is actually going on. I think you can check it out because a lot of the solutions that are being built on the hash graph is solutions that are there to track traceability. Traceability of something all the way from even extraction of a raw material to how it's being used for production. Just making sure that it is all ethically sourced. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting a link to the Hedera hackathon. Please join in. Let's hack the future. Okay, so we're finally at the last one, which is legal. So the first influencer is the data protection and privacy laws. So we in Nigeria currently we have the NDPR, and we've also seen strides in Kenya, South Africa to put out a policy or document that guides businesses, startups, everybody who handles data on the best practice. So what does this mean? Currently, that means as a startup now in Nigeria, you don't need to second guess the kind of data you need to be working with or how you need to work with this data, because there's already a playbook that you can go look into and see how to handle customers' data. Legal factor is the fintech and digital finance regulation. So constantly I see those in the fintech lashing out about a new regulation, that it's going to affect whatever they're working on, or I've even seen startups that collapse based on just a new regulation that puts them out of business. So we're also going to be vying for a more unified regulation or regulatory approach for fintech and startups. And finally, we have the trade and taxation policies. So cross-border trade, barriers affecting cloud computing and e-commerce, these are some of the areas that will require policies and regulations to be put. So big ups to the African Continental Free Trade Area for the regulations that are being pushed through that particular forum, and we hope that this gets across board and that we have a freer digital economy across the continent. Okay, so this is the current state of the African technology ecosystem through the eyes of the PESTEL lens. So you can see that there are lots of opportunities and current challenges we face. You can be assured that these challenges will be addressed, and we're going to have a better regulatory playground moving forward.